Good.
Fact.
People are saying they don't want to do it and they're making that conscious choice. Great. Listen, university is not tenable for most folks.
Good evening, welcome to another video. Hopefully this time when I record this, the sound actually works, because this is the second time I had to record this, and so this will not actually be a genuine reaction because I've already watched this entire video once, but I'll try and kind of capture the entire essence of the previous recording. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, leave me a nasty comment telling me how ugly I am or how dumb I am. I don't care, just leave a comment. Today I'm going to take a look at the Abba and Preach video they did. Now it's been almost a week and a half ago, I guess, where they were talking about guys not going to college. I'm going to react to their stuff, and I'm going to give my 2 cents based off of my experience. For those of you who don't know, I've taught at the collegiate level for most of the last 5 years. I'll fill in my experience from it, which is different from theirs, since I believe Abba dropped out of high school, and I think Preach never, he finished high school, but he keeps going back to college and not finishing it. So our experience is a little different, but it's interesting to note where we agree and where we disagree on things. So I'm gonna jump into it. Let's play it.
Today's topic.
Let's put this up there on the screen. This is a new Wall Street Journal investigation. Quote, "Men are abandoning higher education in such numbers, they now trail female college students by record levels." So get this, in 2020, the college gender gap has surged. 59% of college students are women, 40.5% of college students are men, and if you look even further, Marshall, it is predominantly young white men, regardless of class status, both poor and those, but when you compare poor and working class white men to those of young Black, Latino, and Asian men from the same economic backgrounds, they are the ones who are kind of leading the way in dropping out. So look, there's always going to been a little bit of an imbalance within college, but 60-40 all within a year, and a dramatic increase in that, especially whenever it comes to socioeconomic status, is absolutely crazy. It's going to change higher education for a long time. So what's going on here?
Well, it's not just going to change higher education, it's going to change our country.
Yeah, right.
Because the key fact in this Wall Street Journal report, it's probably paywalled, but I really recommend people try to find it as much as they can, because once again, this is actually, I don't want to overstate this, a game changer as we look to how the next couple of decades are going to play out. There's been a huge actual decline in the number of individuals enrolled in college over the past decade, and 71% of that decline is driven by young men. Like that is the key
Good.
fact.
People are saying they don't want to do it and they're making that conscious choice. Great. Listen, university is not tenable for most folks. Having to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in through student loans, or even 50, 60 grand with interest and all that stuff. It's untenable, considering also the fact that the return on investment isn't very high for a lot of these degrees.
It's crazy, isn't it?
So
Yeah, they're not wrong. As I said, I spent most of the last 5 years as a side gig teaching at the collegiate level. In that time, probably, a rough estimate, over 300 students. I'd say probably 200 of them were one in the wrong major or shouldn't have been in college at all. What ends up happening is you have high school students, or sometimes it's first year college students, they walk into their advisor or their guidance counselor's office, and on the wall there'll be a list of majors that have the highest paying salaries out of college. And you'll see something like doctor, lawyer, computer scientist, computer engineer, mechanical engineer, all that stuff, and they look and they're like, all right, well, I don't want to go to law school, that's too much. I don't want to go to be a doctor, that's too much schooling. Computer scientist or computer engineer, that's good. I could write video games and get paid for it. I like video games, so I'll do it. And I cannot tell you how many students I had that are like that. Problem that they run into is when they actually get to the subject matter that they're trying to study, they have no desire to actually study it. They don't care about it. What they care about is the end result. They care about playing the game. They don't care about all the stuff that goes into making the game. And they also completely ignore the fact that because everybody that goes into programming in particular has a desire to work for a gaming company, the gaming companies have the lowest salaries of those salaries coming out of college. But that's a whole different topic entirely. Even worse is when you go into some other degrees that have no value coming out of it. Anything that ends in studies is basically worthless unless you want to go into law school afterward or try and get your PhD and teach it, in which case you're teaching the next generation of useless information. You look at the tuition prices over the last, say, 40 years, and they've been skyrocketing, but the number of professors at colleges has not really increased all that much. So where's the money going? If you look at the details, a lot of it is going into additional administrators. So you're not getting better teachers, you're not getting more teachers, you're not getting smaller class sizes. What you're getting is more people that sit in an office telling those teachers how to teach and not really adding any value, but taking a ton of money out of the system. On the other end of that coin, you have the students who are taking out student loans that are going to take them forever to pay off, and you can't get rid of in bankruptcy to get these degrees that aren't going to get them the salaries they need to pay off those. It's a vicious trap. I have a master's degree, I'm all for education. However, there's a few things that you need to know before you start going to college. One, what do you want to major in? If you don't know what you want to major in, don't go to college. It's just going to be a waste of time and money. Two, what do you want to major in? If you know what you want to major in, but that degree is not going to get you a job that's going to help you pay off that degree in a short period of time, and I mean like 5-10 years, it's pointless to go. Figure something else out to make money. If you want to go later, after you've got your financial situation all taken care of and study, underwater basket weaving, more power to you. Like I said, I'm not opposed to education. I'm opposed to the trap that we're putting on a lot of kids, especially at the 17 to 20-year-olds, where we're shoving them into college saying, here, figure it out. They're expected to, take out massive loans, and a lot of times they don't know what they want to study, so they end up in school a lot longer. They end up getting degrees just for the sake of getting a degree in a field that's not going to get them a job, and then they come out with a massive debt on top of that.
That young men are saying, listen, I'm not going to fuck up my whole life, take on all this debt, and shackle myself to a degree that, one, I probably don't even know if I want to do, because who the fuck knows what they want to do when they're 18, bruh. At 18, I don't even know where I want to stick my dick in. You want to tell me to tell you where I could choose my future? Bruh.
I don't disagree with Amir, but it is rare for somebody coming out of high school to actually know what they want to study and what they plan on doing. I happened to luck out. I figured out what I wanted to do while I was in high school and actually started doing it while I was in high school. I agree that for most people, that's not the situation they're in. And if you're 17 and don't know what you want to do, it's not the end of the world. There are things that you can do to figure out what you want to do. Apprenticeship programs. You can join the military, civil service. You can do internships and try different things and figure out what you like. And that's really where you want to go. You don't want to spend a whole ton of money trying and basically focus in on one thing that you may not like. And then you're just out a ton of money. It's a sunk cost problem where you've thrown a whole bunch of money into studying one field and kind of feel like you're stuck in it because you spent so much money. You have to kind of figure out a way to get a return on investment on that. You end up with a lot of people that come out of school and are very unhappy with the field they chose. I can't tell you how many people I went to school with that ended up getting jobs that are in fields that they didn't actually study because they hated their field of study once they got done with it. My recommendation, if you're just coming out of high school or you're thinking about going back to school, if you don't know what you want to study, go to a community college if you're going to do college at all and just get your general studies portion done. Community college in most places will transfer directly once you've got that associate's degree. And if you decide, if you're done with that you don't know what you still don't know what you want to study, at least one, you've got an associate's degree, so you can go back at any point and figure, work for the last 2 years to get a bachelor's. And two, it's not a whole lot of wasted money because you with the cheaper route with the community college, you got the portion that you would get done anyway, because any degree you get is going to have a general education requirement, which is basically just an extension of high school. It bothers me that you go to college and the first 2 years is basically making sure that you actually learned what you should have learned in the previous 4 years, but because they can't guarantee that high schools teach what they're supposed to teach, they have to then cram it in 2 years, and then they can start teaching you what you actually want to study in theory, the subject matter that you're actually majoring in. If you actually went to a 4-year school and actually started studying the stuff that you wanted to major in, people might actually figure out that they don't like stuff much earlier. You might end up with guys that decide, hey, I want to try computer science, I like video games, and get into it and realize they don't like programming at all. Or you might have people that's like, hey, I really like math, I want to do math. And then when they start taking Calculus 6 and you realize how much proof is involved, they don't like that at all and decide, you know what, I want to change things up, I want to pick a different major. Or you might have guys that decide they want to major in underwater basket weaving going in and realize after year one that, yeah, it's too easy and they aren't going to get a job and actually pick a real major.
Are you mad? That's crazy.
You're moving mad.
That's crazy.
You're moving mad.
And you're telling me I have to make a choice and take on debt? Bruh, this is a lose-lose, and it's going to be a lose-lose in 20 years. So it's just L's all day. Then I get to school, I'm stressed out, don't enjoy it, and the next 4 years of my life are just absolute trash if I didn't pick correctly. Nigga. And I gotta suffer with that decision forever? There are people literally running away from this country because they don't want to pay their student loans. So what? Am I gonna be going crazy? Like, oh.
That's interesting. I'd have to look into this article. It wouldn't surprise me because I know there are some people that if you go to an Ivy League school, for example, if you don't have any scholarship money or whatnot, those things can rack up tons of debt very quickly. I know I've read articles where people had like $200,000 in student loan debt and getting garbage degrees. It's like, what are you thinking? Like, there's no return on investment in some of these things. But so yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that people are just fleeing the country so they can get away from it, because like I said earlier, student loans are the only loan that stay with you through bankruptcy. So if you take out a mortgage, you rack up a ton of credit card debt, you buy a car, and then you can't pay for it, all those loans get wiped off on bankruptcy. You take out a student loan, you file bankruptcy, that student loan's still there. You still have to pay that.
Of course young men are quitting this thing. This college system is untenable.
It makes no sense.
It's untenable for everybody.
No sense.
And the fact that we pressure young folks into making this decision and telling them this is a way forward, it's not like these are lazy people who want to stay home and smoke weed all day. All right? Me, I know this. Young dudes want responsibility. They want to work.
What's funny is you'll find, especially at college these days, there are more people who want to, stay in the dorm and smoke weed all day that are in college.
And so they go out and they join the labor force. And they'll do manual labor. You tell them to go on a construction field, vast majority of them will join the next day.
And they feel proud.
And they feel good because they know that the labor and the work that they put in comes back to them. When you go to university, it's a bit more ephemeral.
Like I said earlier, with apprenticeship programs, you actually get paid to learn a trade. If you don't like the trade, at least you're getting paid. You're learning a skill and you're getting paid to do it. And if you become a master in some of these trades, I got buddies that I went to high school with who ended up becoming master HVAC technicians, and they make a killing. You learn a skill like a HVAC technician, plumber, electrician, bricklayer, welder, like all these things you can become an apprentice in, learn the skill, and get paid while you're learning it. And you get out and you're making as much money, if not more, than some of these college grads, and you don't have any debt to go along with it. So it's just a great example of, if you don't know what you want to do, spending money to learn, to get the big diploma. I got 4 of them. I could put them on the back wall if I had enough room. Spending money to get those is pointless if you have no clue what you want to do and you don't have the money to pay for it up front. If you're getting a loan and you don't know where you want to go, it's like buying I'm going to take out a $100,000 loan on a car and I don't know if the car will run. I'm just going to buy that car over there, no test drive, it's not even going to turn the engine on. I'm just going to take a look at it. Yep. And then go up there and it's literally you're rolling the dice. If you get in, the engine might start. Hell, you get in, the car might not even have an engine. And that's what a lot of people are doing these days, is they're getting degrees that have no engine.
It's a little bit harder to grab. It's like sand in your hand. It keeps slipping out. That's not a great feeling. Not when you're looking for stability.
Oh, you want to work, sir? Well, okay, you'll work. Give me 50 grand first. What?
Nah.
50 is cheap in a lot of places. Some of these schools these days can rack up 100 grand, especially if you're living on campus in the dorms. You're talking, some of them are 100 grand a year.
It's not. So I understand the frustration that they feel. And if they're making this conscious choice to say, listen, I'm lost, but I'm not going to make this reckless choice that history has shown is probably not going to be to my benefit, good for these men.
Man.
And I hope minorities follow suit as well. If you're not choosing a great field, all right, I do not recommend that you shackle yourself with debt. I don't recommend it. Take a couple extra years before you make that choice. Because we're too often, I know this from an immigrant standpoint, parents
speak on it.
Put that pressure.
They
put that pressure, and I've seen it break a lot of these kids.
Not only will it break them from picking the wrong major, I've actually seen it where a kid was thrown in the wrong major, and the pressure he was getting from his parents was so great, not just to get his degree, but to ace every class, that he started cheating. And he actually sent an email, didn't realize that he was also including me on the email as his instructor, saying, hey, I know we're not supposed to collaborate, but if anybody wants to collaborate on our projects, we can go ahead and get groups set up for that. I can't tell you how many of his fellow students emailed me directly with a copy of the email that I'd already seen saying, hey, dude's trying to violate policies. Like, the pressure was so great, and like ended up going to the honor council and all that. Ended up getting a slap on the wrist, probation type thing. But his mother actually called me directly and said, my son will not do this ever again. We need to get this resolved. I am so sorry. She was very, very strict, and she was putting a lot of pressure on him, not just to succeed, but to succeed perfectly. The pressure is not just to pick a major and pick the right major. I think they're going to go into a lot of pressure to become like a doctor or a lawyer. In some cases, even worse than that. It's you will succeed and you will ace every class. So they get to the point where especially if they don't like the subject matter, they're struggling because they now have to meet the expectations of their parent to ace every class, and they hate the class, but they can't go tell their parents, hey, I want to change majors.
Kids that were supposed to be doctors and had mental breakdowns and just gave up on everything.
Yo, you should have seen my parents when my sister went from health science to teaching.
Because here's the thing, there's what your parents want you to be and who you are.
Yep.
And these things are constantly pulling at you from both extremes. Yep. And so I think from people from minority backgrounds, they're living through that existence. And if you're fortunate, if you're one of the lucky ones, who you are happens to be pretty decently close to what your parents want you to do. So you might luck out. But most people don't have that experience. So I think the reason why this trend is so different between minority backgrounds and white folks is I think just the messaging is very, very, very different in that regards. And that pressure you get is different. It comes from a different place.
And more so, that's the only way that at some point that minorities could advance.
Yeah.
That's when they could...
because you got to bring your mama out the hood. You got to bring your dad out. You got to take it, pull everybody out, right? Or if you're an immigrant, well, we came to this country to give you a good life. So if you're not going to do it,
you're not going to live your dreams. Right. You're going to work.
So if young men are...
Yeah, and that's a huge amount of mental pressure to stick on people. It's on you to bring the whole family out of poverty, but also... we moved, especially if you're first generation, we moved out of this just specifically so we could give you a chance. Yes, a lot of times that is the case where they moved so that they would give their kids a better opportunity and they want their kids to take advantage of that. But to use that as kind of a guilt trip puts a lot of pressure on people. Obviously, I'm not a minority. I didn't have that pressure. My parents was always just like, it was a different focus. It was do what you love, do it well. Whatever you choose to do, make sure you do it well. A completely different mentality than what they're coming from. I can respect it, and I understand the pressure that they're under because I've seen it as being a teacher. That a lot of these kids, that they're being told you've got to do this and you've got to do it perfectly. That wasn't my experience growing up. My experience was if you want to go to college, you're paying for it and you should do well.
They're saying, nah, I'm not going to jump into this. Good for you guys. Listen, you're talking to a high school dropout, which I don't recommend. But what I'm trying to say is education wasn't for me, and I could see the writing on the wall. I went to orientation day for university to go see what it was like, so I sat down on a criminology lecture and I fell asleep. And I said, nigga, I'm not paying to sleep at school. I could nap for free in my bed, save some money, and make my own choices. Because guess what? If there's one thing my mom taught me other than go to school, love your money. It just so happens that's the only lesson I listened to. Shout out to mom. Okay? I like my money.
If you're only going to take one lesson away from your parents, I guess that's a good one to take. I don't recommend dropping out of school, but do take care of your money.
That's why I always had a bit in the savings. Why? Because I didn't like having zero. All right? I would rather starve and wear the same clothes all day than have no money in my bank account. Okay?
Hey, shout outs to you, Mamba.
I never had debt. That's one of the best lessons my mom taught me. You can't pay for it. You don't play with it.
Just to expand upon that, a lot of people, they put a lot of stuff on credit cards and they want things quickly. Delayed gratification is good in so many aspects of your life. If you have to work for it, there's a couple of things that you'll notice. One, by the time you can afford it, you might not want it anymore. In which case, now you have a whole bunch of money that you saved up that you didn't have before, and you don't have the thing you don't want. And two, if you actually do want it, now you don't have any debt, so you're not paying for it for the next 20 years. Taking care of your finances, I definitely agree with.
Okay? If you can't afford to play, boy, don't play.
If you can't afford to play, stay away.
Hey, that's right. Okay? That was real.
That's the only lesson you learned.
Listen. That is one lesson. My mom, she worked a lot, so she couldn't be present too often. But that lesson stuck with me my whole life, and I never had no issue with credit as a result. Yeah, in terms of finances, I understand it for folks, and I think here's the interesting thing.
Go in.
So we're speaking out of social place. I think this is going to change the way work is going to work. right? The way the whole like employment landscape is gonna look, completely gonna change. Because all these men who are gaining experience but yet don't have like the necessary paperwork for degrees, employers are gonna have to start looking differently at who they're gonna hire, right? Because they need competence over paperwork.
And you know,
right?
You know,
so employers are gonna have to look at things very differently.
They already have. As somebody who's been a hiring manager for over a decade, I can tell you that a lot of times you'll see an either or. You'll see something that'll say a bachelor's degree or 5 years experience. If you have the experience, a lot of times you're a better candidate than somebody who's just getting out of school. I can't tell you the number of times I've interviewed a PhD candidate, asked them a very simple first year computer science question, and they stumble through it because they're so stuck in the clouds in terms of their academic thinking that they can't put things into practice. Other fields are very similar, or you have stuff that's so theoretical in nature, but there's a point of practicality. There's some things that, yes, if you think about it at the extremely high level, the perfect solution is going to be one thing. But when you get down to it, you don't have time for a perfect solution. You need the 90% solution, something that'll work quickly and get you there. Getting to mathematics. So for those of you who aren't math inclined, may want to tune out for the next 30 seconds or so. But when you get to integrals, there are some times where getting the exact integral is too much work, or getting the exact answer to a problem is too much work. But you can come up with an approximation that's very quick and very easy to calculate, but it's only off by a couple percentage. Whatever the margin of error you can accept is, you're okay with that.
Right? So it's going to change the work landscape, for one. Two, it's going to completely change the dating landscape.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies,
you're going to have to start paying for them bills.
You want somebody at your education level?
You're going to have to go get it.
You want somebody who's making maybe comparable income?
Turn a lesbian.
You know what I mean?
I don't know about the last part, because like I said earlier, if you go into the trade route, you can actually make more money and have a lot less debt than somebody coming out of college. But here's an interesting thing. This is an anecdote from my college year. So it's been almost 20 years, but I had my senior capstone course for my business degree was taught by a female professor. Towards the end of the semester, there was a girl in my class, and she was complaining about her boyfriend at the time. And the teacher comes over and was talking to her about it. Her boyfriend's not going to school. He doesn't have any ambition. And the teacher just looked at her and said, "You're getting your bachelor's degree?" He's like, "Yeah." "You plan to get your MBA?" "Yeah." She's like, "Don't worry. He won't be around for a while." She's like, No, I love him. I just want him to. She said, "One thing you'll realize is women tend to marry at or above their education level. They very rarely, if ever, marry below their education. Men, that's not a problem. A guy with a PhD can marry somebody who's a high school dropout. Going forward, if you got all these ladies that have PhDs and you've got guys that aren't going to school, now granted, a lot of their PhDs are going to be a nonsense degree. So if you have a PhD and a studies degree, you basically have a second high school diploma. But that's not how they see it. They see it as they have a PhD, so they want to date other guys that have PhDs. Guess what? If the guys aren't going to school, now you've got more women with PhDs than you have guys with PhDs. Who are they going to date? So they're going to have to change their standards if this trend continues. It's going to be interesting to see.
He might not make as much as you, but best believe he's going to have less debt than you.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be just how much you make. It's like, bitch, you got student debt. Let's talk, okay? It's about to be a different conversation.
I wonder how it's going to go on one of your first few dates. Be like, "Yeah, I've got my PhD," and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a master, electrician or whatever." "Oh, yeah, I make $100,000 a year teaching at the university." "Oh yeah, I make $150,000 a year as an electrician." "How much student debt do you have?" "Oh, I've got $300,000 in student debt." Next, I can just see that conversation happening. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Hypergamy, if you still play into that, you going to die alone.
That shit's going
guaranteed.
Wow, that shit's going to change.
It's going to change a lot.
It's going to change.
All right?
God damn.
A lot's going to change.
Mm-hmm. The way people looking at things.
Yeah.
So I got a lawyer's degree. I'm doing this. Cool. How's the student land? Well, I'm 150 down. Oh, okay. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah. Yep. Only a few of you ladies are gonna get in the mind.
Crazy.
Okay.
How long do you think the switch gonna happen? 5 years?
Oh no, I think this is permanent.
Oh no. The switch. Right now, no. This people are gonna look the way people are gonna look at dating and everything and stuff. When is it starting?
Oh, it's already been starting.
Yeah,
it's already been starting because these trends have already showcased themselves. Remember that video we did earlier about
dating down?
Yeah. That's only gonna happen more.
More and more.
And so this whole idea of traditionally the man makes more and all this other stuff, that may not necessarily be true.
throwing my opinion in here, I think what's going to end up happening, I think the pendulum's going to swing hard the other way. I don't think it's going to keep going to the point where they're assuming it's going to going in a linear trajectory, thinking, all right, women are going to keep going this way. I think what's going to end up happening is the generation behind the current generation, so the Gen X's and the millennials, they're pushing hard this way. I think you're going to end up with a whole bunch of women who get into their 30s and 40s and are unhappy because they basically realized they were fed the lie that they could have it all, and now they're, as they reach like their mid 40s, they never got married, never had kids, and they want those things. The generation behind them, so Generation Z and whatever generation is behind that, they're going to see that and go, yeah, I want no part of that. I'm going to get married, have my kids early, and I'm going to try and lock down the guy that I want to spend my life with as quickly as possible, and not go with the whole, try and get a career, try and spend all this time finding myself in college. I could be wrong on this. I tend to see that the ebb and flow going back and forth, and I think it's going to push hard because it's been pushing so hard to this direction for so long. I think it's going to swing back quickly and go the other way. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out just from a macro view of things. But I don't think it's going to keep going linearly to the point. I think just how human nature is, the generation is going to be like, oh, I want no part of that, and turn around.
What do you think about what you just heard?
I could try to analyze it. And it's white people white men that are not going to the school, right?
Men in general, but white men are driving it.
We spent the last couple of years saying that white men were the problem. White men were leading the world. White men were winning. This new generation doesn't want to be that. There's that. There's the fact that, everything changed. There's technology has changed everywhere. Cars.
Interesting note on that point that he's getting at there is, if you listen to a lot of the girl power advocates, they'll tell you that fight the patriarchy, down with the cisgendered white males. If all of them are basically taking a page out of Atlas Shrugged and saying, screw it, have your way, and then they get to the point and nothing's changed, and they're the ones in control, they're still unhappy and still things are wrong, who are they going to blame then? It'll be interesting to see.
Phones, computers. A classroom has been the same since Charlemagne, the guy that invented made that mandatory. It never really appealed to boys. We just winging because that's the thing that we had to do. Them dropping out.
And the way the classrooms are done, and this is what drives me nuts about a lot of the educational system, is that you shove kids in a desk and want them to sit there for 8 hours just absorbing information. A lot of times that's not how, especially boys in particular, that's not how they learn. It took me a long time. I think I was middle school, maybe early high school, before I figured out the best way that I learned. And I taught myself because I wasn't getting it at school. It was very rare that I had a teacher that actually understood how to teach me. A lot of times I would get the books and I would teach myself the way I needed to be taught ahead of time. And then I would fill in the gaps with whatever I had wrong in lectures the teachers were giving. Same thing with college. It was very rare that I walked into a class and I did not already understand the material, simply because I understood that I could not rely on the teachers to teach me. From an educational perspective, we really need to work on how we teach students and making sure that we teach them in the way that they need to be taught, not just shove them in an assembly line, which is what the educational system, especially the public educational system, is really focused on.
In a society I understood, the society that we live in, every time you got a paper, they would ask you for experience. So it was actually just better to go out there and have experience. So I never went back, because you need experience. You're going to come out with a paper, with a diploma, and they're still going to ask you for 5 years experience. So I might as well just start from the bottom in this company, learn the nooks and crannies of everything, and go up rather than go to school. And then I could use that. And it's been working like that.
If you start working for a company and you work at the bottom, a lot of, especially big companies, will offer tuition reimbursement. Meaning, if you start at the bottom and you just start taking a couple of classes, a semester, and they'll pay for it, the only thing you'll owe at the end of all that is time. In other words, the company I worked for not too long ago, they required you to work 18 months after your last class that you had them pay for before it zeroed out. That's a way that I recommend a lot of people go, especially if you can get your foot in the door at a company that offers that. Go ahead and start taking classes and take advantage of them paying for the classes, because that way they're paying for it, they're paying you, and you're getting your education and your experience at the same time, and you're not racking up debt. If you already have a bachelor's degree and you're at a company that offers this, use that to get your master's degree or get a PhD or get a second bachelor's degree in a field that you actually care about. Take advantage of that when you can, where you can. And like I said, I encourage people to get education. I just don't want you to go into a massive amount of debt to get it when you have no idea what you want to do with your life.
So I can understand at some point that if I just base it on my experience, that people would not try to go to school. It's not granted that you're gonna have this big ass diploma, and then after that, a lot of people that I know are not working in the field that they. And I'm not talking about doctors. I'm not talking about people that are pharmacists and stuff like that. But other fields, there's a lot of fields that they're not working in the fields that they studied. So I don't know. I don't know if it's their big brothers talking to them. I don't know if it's their experience or anything like that. But if I take it from my experience, I'm like, ugh, I don't know, man.
Anyways, I think this is super interesting. I think this is a very, very telling trend. It's something I've noticed, and this is already well documented. But just seeing how exponentially faster it's happening to all the young men watching. I'm not telling y'all not to go to school. I'm just saying make the decision responsibly. Don't do it because the world tells you.
The other thing I want to add that's very interesting. So I mentioned a couple of times that I taught computer science. Over the last 5 years, I've noticed an increase in the number of women in my classes. When I was as an undergrad, I think we had 2 girls in the entire program. 2. There were 300 people, give or take, in the computer science program. 2 of them were female. Before the pandemic started, and they put all the adjuncts kind of on furlough, there were classes where I would have 50, 60 students, and 35 of them would be female. So there's been a shift, and what's funny about that is a lot of them will end up getting their computer science degree and then get a job that's not related to computer science. They realize they don't like it. They got it because they were given scholarship money. One of the girls that I went to school with, she had a scholarship that was, women in STEM type scholarship. She got out and she's like, I hate. So she ended up going into project management, straight up like construction type project management, nothing to do with computers at all. So you run into that a lot of times. I agree with Abba that it'll be a very interesting trend to watch going forward. So I'm going to end it here. And he said it will be fun to watch this. If you're new to the channel, you made it this far, I appreciate you. Please hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think that that Abba and Preacher are right, that the trend's going to keep going up, and that you're going to end up with a whole bunch of women with degrees and nobody to date and marry? Or do you think it's going to swing back the other way? Or you think that people are going to pull out altogether? I don't know. Leave me your thoughts below. We'll talk about them. Hope you're having a great night. Until next time, keep improving.